Godzilla vs. Kong is hitting theaters in North America this week. Can it live up to the greatest cinematic contests of all time? Alien vs. Predator, Batman v Superman, Kramer vs. Kramer. I'll tell you right now. Hello everybody, I'm Dan Murrell here with my review of Godzilla vs. Kong. This is not the first time these two cinematic titans have faced off on the big screen, but it's the first time in the modern era and with the kind of effects that we have, and this is really a show. First things first, this is a non-spoiler review. I will not be giving away any of the really cool stuff that is in this movie other than the fact that you have Godzilla versus Kong. I think that that's safe to say is in the movie. There are a lot of things that you can discover for yourself, but the premise of the movie is simple. On one side you have Godzilla, on the other side you have King Kong, and they're going to fight each other. That's really the promise that you have to deliver on when you come to this movie. And this movie delivers on that promise and then some. When you look at how to make an entire movie out of this, though, it's a trickier balancing act than you might think because you have to have some sort of story, some sort of justification for having these two fight each other. It can't be just 2 hours of Godzilla fighting Kong. That would get a little repetitive. I think that was, for me, part of the problem with Godzilla King of the Monsters, where some people complained that the 2014 Godzilla didn't have enough monster fighting action. For me, Godzilla King of the Monsters had too much. The fights became too repetitive. They lost a lot of their meaning. And so you have to figure out how much time do you spend on story away from these two, and how much time do you spend with these two fighting each other. And I think this movie gets the balance just about right. I didn't feel like we tipped too far one way or the other. If I felt that we were in danger of upsetting that balance, we'd usually go the other way and kind of do a counterweight on the other side. But let's not pretend that these are two equal sides here, because the Godzilla versus Kong scenes are great. It is as well staged as I think that you could imagine a fight between these two could be, given the effects and everything that we have now. The choreography, as it were, is great. It's not like on one hand you have these great fight scenes and on the other hand you have these great human scenes. The human scenes are filler. They're fluff. They are there to provide the paper-thin justification to get these two things in the same place at the same time. However, what story is there at least makes sense. The movie doesn't delve too deeply into it. They understand that people aren't there to get the continued adventures of the Monarch Corporation and all of the corporate intrigue, etc. A lot of times what will sink a movie like this for me is when they invest too heavily in the story. And a lot of people say like, well, that's hypocritical because you always say that, you know, when you're talking about movies, like the story is the first thing. And it is. But at the same time, that doesn't mean you have to tell a story the same way in every single movie. And one of the things that has annoyed me about movies like Godzilla vs. Kong that have come out in the past is that the filmmakers or the writers don't seem to understand what the reason for that movie's existence is. It's not for us to get an hour and a half of expository scenes and get to know 25 different characters, each with their own subplots. We don't care about that stuff. We care about the main event. There are some returning cast members here that you've already met in previous films. The two most notable are Kyle Chandler and Millie Bobby Brown. Again, they're very fancy set dressing. They're very capable actors, but they're just there to get the plot moving in order to set these two on a collision course with each other. You also have some new cast members to the franchise, including Brian Tyree Henry, Rebecca Hall, Alexander Skarsgård, and Damian Bashir. Although I think that the strongest new cast member, and maybe the MVP of all the cast members, is a young actor named Kaylee Hottle. She plays a young girl who forms a special connection with Kong. This is her first movie. It's the only movie that she's done. As a matter of fact, this is pretty much her only credit, and she's really good in the movie. And it's also part of why, everybody's going to have their favorite in this fight. And the movie doesn't really pick sides, but it does invest more heavily in Kong's storyline. You get to know more about him, and it kind of makes sense because Godzilla, whether he's good or bad, he's got pretty much one thing that he does. He comes in, he steps on things, and he shoots fire breath, and that's pretty much it. Kong is much more emotive. He has more of a backstory. We get into that backstory, so it makes sense to have him connect to characters more deeply, and that actually carries over into the fight scenes. And one of the other things that I like about this, not only is it choreographed well, and it's just badass and cool, but they give these characters personality. Godzilla and Kong have attitudes. You can tell what they're thinking. They have tactics. They have strategy. They have fighting styles. It would have been very easy just to let the pixels take over and have these two monsters just, kind of do a slugfest in the middle of some buildings. But I think there's a very subtle art to what they're doing in this movie, because as you learn more about Kong, as you learn more about Godzilla, and as you watch them, you see how their fighting styles develop. You can almost see Kong plotting his next move at some point. You can see Godzilla's frustration at other points. It really shows a respect on the part of the filmmakers and the director of this film, Adam Wingard, to get it right and to give these characters personalities, even though they can't speak. And this movie really does that, and it subtly adds to what makes these fight scenes great and why this movie ultimately works. One of the things people ask when they ask about, doing a movie or being a film critic, talking about different kinds of movies, is there's no objective scale. How do you judge a movie? And this is a philosophy that I think Roger Ebert also talked about, is you don't just set one scale for every movie and judge every movie by the same criteria. You have to judge it by what is the movie's intention? What is it trying to be? What does it set out to do? Godzilla vs. Kong sets out to be the best movie about Godzilla fighting Kong that it can be, and it succeeds on that score. So I would say that this is a successful movie. It's one that I enjoyed. The third act of this movie is so great. It's something that I am going to enjoy returning to again and again. And I've said this about a few different movies, but more than any other movie, and I really do hope that we are near the end of this thing. We were sitting on the couch hooting and hollering and fist pumping, and I can just imagine what this would have been like to see this movie for the first time in a theater with a crowd of people. And that's what I love about movies. The experience of seeing a movie like this for the very first time, seeing all of these different things the film has in store for you, all of the cool things it has in store for these characters, with nobody knowing what's about to happen. It was a really fun experience and a great experience at home. I think it would have been a phenomenal experience if I've been able to do this in a movie theater. I know that there are lots of movie theaters open here in North America where the movie's opening this week. It's been open in several other markets across the world this previous weekend, and it will continue to roll out. Of course, you have to be safe. You have to be cautious. You have to abide by the rules that are put down where you are, because they are there for public health and public safety. But if you have a theater near you, if it is safe for you to do so, and if you feel comfortable doing so, I would recommend seeing this, even if it's a 25% capacity crowd, which it is in a lot of the big cities, New York and Los Angeles. A crowd of any size, I think, is really only going to enhance the effect of this film. I would say if you're watching it at home, put it on the biggest screen that you got. Turn up the volume as much as you can without disturbing your neighbors or whatever else, because this really is spectacle and it's really well done. It's not a perfect film. It's not an A+ film. It's not going to go on my list of favorite movies of all time, but it is a really enjoyable film. And like I said, when you're judging a movie, you have to judge what it's trying to be. Godzilla vs. Kong is trying to be a great Godzilla vs. Kong movie, and it succeeds on that level. So those are my thoughts on Godzilla vs. Kong. If you're a fan of Godzilla or King Kong or monsters or action or fighting, pretty much any of those things, I think you're going to have a great time. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Are you excited? Is this going to be your first movie in a theater in quite some time? I know that it's going to be for a lot of people. I'm very envious of all of you, and I hope you have a fun and safe time at the movies. Thank you for watching me here on the channel. Stay tuned. I've got the box office next week, obviously, for this film. I think it's going to do quite well. Probably the best box office we've seen in many months here in North America. You can also check out my podcast, All My Movies, which this week is going to be moving to this channel. You'll be able to watch it right here every single week. We're going to be uploading a library episode from the archives this week, and then we'll start with all new episodes going forward. So I would love for you to stick around and get acquainted with that. And also, please don't forget to join me over on Patreon if you want to see what else I'm up to. I just added a bunch of stuff at the $5 tier, which is our lowest price tier, including a commentary every month that patrons have not had access to before, as well as access to my monthly AMAs, which patrons on the $5 tier have not had access to in the past. So a lot of stuff at every level. I would love for you to come and join me there. And to everyone who has subscribed to the channel or is a new subscriber, Thank you so much. We are coasting toward 100,000 subscribers almost a year after launching the channel. It's going to be a year in about 3 weeks. To already be approaching that milestone is crazy, and to be getting some of the traction that we've gotten and on a lot of the movie reviews, and for movies to be coming out again, it really does feel like we're kind of cooking with the channel here what I envisioned when I started it almost a year ago. So thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Everybody be safe. And thanks for watching.